All right, Big Ten friends, welcome back. Another episode of Believe in Big Ten. I'm Rhett Lewis. So excited to be back here with you as the conference football schedule really getting into the meat of things now, is kind of getting into the month of November here shortly. And so teams are making moves, but no team making a bigger move than the Indiana Hoosiers, who are sitting at 13th ranked in the country right now and 7-0 in Curt Cignetti's first year leading the program. The campus, the community, all abuzz. And the man that had the foresight, the man that had the plan to make all that happen is our distinguished guest today. What a pleasure to have Indiana Athletic Director Scott Dolson here with us. Scott, man, I'm so fired up to get a chance to talk to you here and just to let the Big Ten community and fanship, know what a great job that you've been doing, since you assumed the role of athletic director and now in these last couple of years. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us.
Hey, Rhett, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Well, let's first talk about the perfect storm last weekend, right? Homecoming weekend. You had a 6-0 football team welcoming in, a very good 5-1 Nebraska team. You had Hoosier hysteria for the men's basketball team. You got men's basketball, women's basketball, and IU football all ranked in the top 25 for the first time in school history. Big noon kickoff is out on the south lawn of Memorial Stadium. The Rock is sold out. Like, what was that weekend like for you to see all of that kind of come together at once?
Yeah, it was awesome, Rhett. It really was. And it's kind of one of those times, sometimes you wish you could just freeze a moment in time. And it's funny, you kind of joke. It's like, do we have to play the game? Can we just kind of enjoy the whole moment? I remember being down on the field in pregame and looking up at the crowd, and we were full to the corners. And it just, the air was just perfect. And so you just kind of want to freeze those moments. But obviously it was a terrific game. It was a great weekend. And, it's what you work for. And we just want to build on that and really ride that wave as long as we can.
Yeah. And that said, what has gone into, creating an incredible game day experience, an improved game day experience, for Indiana football, one that attracts fans the way that it has now. And obviously winning is the biggest deal. But from your perspective, where does all that work? What does all that work kind of look like?
You're so right. There's no question that winning is a massive part of it. But at the same time, our game management team, our marketing staff, all of our kind of behind the scenes, I call them unsung heroes. They work their tail off and they work for these moments. And, I think we were ready, and that's a key thing. It wasn't like that all of a sudden we started to win some games and we had to scramble and have some meetings and prepare for the effects of winning, that they were ready. And I say this all the time about these unsung heroes, Rhett, is behind the scenes. They're doing things, that same staff who had everything ready in a great homecoming game, right? They did the event the night before, the Hoosier Hysteria. They were at the volleyball game a couple days earlier. They were at men's soccer on Friday night while Hoosier Hysteria was going on. It's that same small staff, and we recognize them internally because we know the hard work they put in. And now it's just great to see that our fans feel it. Even from the concession stands to our ticket office is amazing. If you see some of the things creatively that they've done to prepare for this moment, as we build the program and Coach Sig builds our football program, we've been working tirelessly outside of that to be ready for that and to make certain we can to adjust as the fans come and be ready.
Yeah, and the fans keep coming, and they're going to come this weekend to see College Game Day on campus for the first time with the full Saturday spectrum, right? They were back on campus, years ago for a Thursday game, I believe, to kick off a season. But this is the first Saturday show that College Game Day has ever been at Bloomington. So from your perspective, what goes into making that scenario happen?
Again, it's nice that when as Coach Sig builds the program, that there are lots of things that come along with that, and certainly it's a big deal. We're honored to host game day, and I think it's a special opportunity for campus. It's a special opportunity for our students, for our staff, and so our goal is we want game day to leave here thinking, boy, they can't wait to come back. That they go to some great places, but it's special here, and we want them to feel that, and want them to know, and everyone to know that we're here for the long haul. We're not here for a one-hit wonder season, and we're here to build this program to a level that in the Big Ten, which is so strong, and we're so proud to be a member of the Big Ten, that we can make a difference and be relevant year in and year out.
In no question. And, obviously you mentioned Coach Sig building the program. I mean, that is the biggest, marker for change that this program has seen in some time. You had a very deliberate plan of action when you went about to find the man who would eventually lead this football program. Can you give some detail as to what brought Coach Sig to Bloomington and why you felt like he was the guy that could bring this unprecedented success to the football program?
Yeah, what we did, Rhett, is we really wanted to find out. We were obviously hoping that Coach Allen would be here for as long as he could. But at the same time, even while he was here, we really wanted to study kind of the history of Indiana football and really do a deep dive into that and to understand when we've had success here, what were things that were happening that led to that success? What could we learn from times when we were good and when we weren't very good? And also look at programs that we thought were similar to us, Duke, North Carolina, Kentucky, Kansas, around the country, other Big Ten schools, that we looked at hires they made, investments they made in football, how they scheduled, everything, and tried to pull out of that study. And we worked on it for about a year, a little over that, to really say, okay, at some point, if we had to make a change, which we're hoping we didn't, what would, from a risk management standpoint, from putting ourselves in the best position possible, what were the qualities we need a head coach? And then in addition to that, what are things we can do as an administration around the program to help that coach and help the program be successful? And so we had a great list, and honestly, Coach Sig checked every box. I mean, we wanted an existing head coach. We wanted a head coach that had been a recruiting coordinator. We wanted a head coach who did not have a lot of staff turnover. We wanted a head coach who was an offensive-minded head coach who had really mentored quarterbacks. And so we had all these different things, and we didn't know if we'd find someone that could check 80% of them, but he checked 100%. And then at the same time, whether it's scheduling, whether it's resources around the program, we really did, from our perspective, what we thought we needed to do from a department to support Coach Sig when we did identify him. So it all just came together perfectly. And you never know when you make those hires, but I got to be honest with you, the first time I talked to Coach Sig on the phone, I felt like he was different, and he would be a perfect fit for us.
And then you've told me before the last line, before you got off the phone with him, and I want to share that with the folks here in just a moment, but want to remind you that BetOnline is the place to be. Basketball fans, it's that time of year again. The NBA is back. From opening tip-off to buzzer beaters, BetOnline has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. BetOnline has every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game, and it's not just the NBA. BetOnline has odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL to political props. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. It's BetOnline. The game starts here. All right, back here with Indiana Athletic Director Scott Dolson. Scott, again, thanks for being with us. You mentioned the interactions you had with Coach Cignetti before ultimately, making the deal to bring him to Bloomington. The last line that you had with Coach Cignetti when you talked to him on the phone, what was that, and how did his answer kind of resonate with you? That kind of fits with what people have kind of seen and heard from him publicly now.
Yeah, we had obviously a great conversation. We spent about an hour on the phone, that Sunday evening after we'd made the change Sunday morning, and really, really good. Like I said, we had a blueprint that we were working off of, and it was like he had a copy of it in front of him when we were talking. I mean, it was just that really fit like two pieces of a puzzle together. But at the very end, I just said to him, I said, Curt, I really enjoyed our conversation. I look forward to talking to you again. I said, do you really think you can win here? And he said, Scott, let me tell you something. If I just have average resources, just average, I will win there. Trust me.
There you go.
And it wasn't, and I tell people this, Rhett, he's not a cocky person. He's not an arrogant person. He honestly just believes that. He's just I describe him as just being extremely authentic. I mean, he just tells you exactly what he thinks. And I think people feel that. And he's just a good guy. He just loves coaching football, loves his family. And but he's just so authentic. And when I hung up, it just struck me that it wasn't he was just telling me what I needed to hear in the interview at all. I think he just believes he knows how to win. He understands how to build a program. He has a blueprint, and I believe him.
And how could you not at this point? Right. And Coach, I mean, Scott, I've been trying to tell people that. Like, I think there's so many people that I've talked to, whether it be on radio shows or other TV shows, and they're asking me, like, what is it with Coach Cignetti? And I'm like, well, people see the moment on the court at Assembly Hall, right? And they're like, what's the deal? I'm like, you see it as bravado. Mm-hmm. He sees it as belief.
Right.
He sees it as this steadfast, fervent belief in his blueprint that you're talking about that has led him to win everywhere he's been. How could you not feel that way about your product when that's all that you've put out there for the world to see? And so I think sometimes there is a misconception there about that it's ego, or it's a cockiness, swagger, but to me, it just registered as belief. And it felt like, Scott, to me, that was something this program really needed, was a moment for that belief to resonate with people.
Rhett, I think you're exactly right. I really think you've nailed it. And honestly, being around the program as long as I have, and I've really followed and tried to study coaches that have been extremely successful. We've had a lot here, and we have many that are here now, but the one thing they all have in common is they all have a plan. They have this is how we do it. This is how I recruit. This is the type of student athlete I need. This is the style of play I have. This is how we develop our student athletes. And it's a real confident blueprint that this is how that I'm going to win. And if you don't have that, and you change a lot, and you change staff, and there's a lot of inconsistencies, it's hard to have consistent winning if you don't have a consistent plan. And so that certainly is what we were looking for. And again, I think he's in the record kind of speaks for itself. And early, right? we're not. The other thing is we're humble. We're not cocky. We got a long way to go. We're not thinking we've got the world figured out. We just want to roll up our sleeves and work and stick to our plan and see where we go.
And that's the thing the other thing that I tell folks, that I learned from my 5 years, being a receiver on the football team with 3 different head coaches and 4 different position coaches was, the thing that you could carry kind of throughout is, the 3 H's of being a Hoosier. It's humble, it's hungry, and it's being hard to play against. Yeah. And I think this team has certainly, embodied that and showed that in this season, without question. I do want to get a little context though from you, because Bloomington as well as anybody at this point. IU as well as anybody at this point from, your roles as a student manager on a basketball team and so many different roles that you've had now working your way up to being the athletic director. How would you characterize, in comparison with other things, what you felt on Saturday, seeing that environment, and then, now having seen the Rock being sold out for the rest of the season, which is incredible. How would you describe it, like compared to other things that you'd seen in Bloomington?
Yeah, I would say it's very different. And it's really interesting because we've had over the years, and again, having been here a long time, certainly, great teams, great players, great years, but there's just a different feel right now. And again, I hesitate when I say that because, I think Coach Sig's this way too. You've got to prove it every Saturday, and you just got to keep putting the work in. And so, I don't want anyone to think I'm suggesting that we've hit the home run and we're running the base.
Never know was never the goal, right?
Never the goal, but at the same time, your question about the feel, there's a trust that immediately Coach Sig has been able to gain with our fan base, with the community, with our department, and most importantly with his team. There's a trust that this guy knows what he's doing, and that he's doing it for the right reasons, and he knows how to build a program, and that's maybe one of the biggest differences in some ways, that there's just a consensus, and it's all across all demographics, whether it's our student body or whether it's our most ardent longtime donor. They trust that, hey, this guy's different, and this is exactly the perfect fit that we needed to build the program we all want.
Yeah, and I want to get to that here in just a second as well, but just to kind of double down on that part with what Coach Cignetti is building here. I mean, we talk about all the players that came into this program right this year, and that's that's not rare anymore in college football. That's just a part of the reality. But, Coach Sig has made no bones about it that he might have to go that route again, this year with a veteran team, playing a lot of key roles in key positions. How does the success this year, really kind of help, without necessarily getting into specifics, but how does that help your job to kind of keep those resources, kind of rolling in that we were talking about to kind of field those teams each and every year?
Yeah, it helps tremendously because there's no question if we didn't have the support we have, Hoosiers for Good, Hoosiers Connect, which has been our NIL source since NIL started, they've been amazing. They were the first, kind of to really jump in this space. And from a collective standpoint, we couldn't have made it without them. And certainly with the success we've had, with the trust I mentioned in Coach Sig, and our supporters' willingness to step up and invest in our program, it all needs to happen at the same time. Yeah. And no matter who the coach is, if you don't have the resources, you can bring in Vince Lombardi. And if he doesn't have the resources, you're not going to win. Or be able to compete. And so it all has to happen at the same time. And our fans, without question, our supporters have been incredibly supportive, not just of football, but our whole department. And I say to my wife all the time, Heidi, I say, it just continues to amaze me the support we have, and that our fans and our supporters just keep stepping up. And it's just, that's what, going back to last Saturday, I feel being able to reward that support with some really, really great success and some good things happening. I think that just means so much. And so I'm happy for our team. I'm happy for our coaching staff, Coach Sig, everybody, our university. I'm really happy for our fans that have stuck with us and stepped up, and they're all part of this. It's really a group effort.
Well, you've ignited a fan base, in a way that we haven't seen, perhaps in, not my lifetime. So that's it's been pretty dang cool to see. Last one here for you, and look, I know that there's a lot of moving pieces here, but what's the best way at this point that you can describe what revenue sharing is going to look like, as that kind of becomes a reality here next season and next year in college athletics?
Yeah, it's a great question, Rhett, because it's, we're all figuring it out at the same time, but it's just another opportunity for our student athletes to really participate in and really be a part of what their college athletic experience is. And so what we're trying to do is really, I talk about balance a lot. We're trying to balance, what are traditional values, which aren't going to go away. We're still education based. We're still about maximizing this incredible opportunity for all of our student athletes. But at the same time, now with NIL and with revenue share around the corner, those are opportunities that we need to make certain that we're on the cutting edge, that we can participate at the highest levels and make certain that we maximize that value as well as, and just as we do with all the other values that we have. So it's going to be exciting. It's all new. And, like I tell our staff, I tell our coaches, it's hard sometimes when you need more clarity. You want a clear vision for exactly where this is going. And that's going to happen over time. But in the meantime, we've got to make certain that we embrace it, that we are very proactive, and that we can maximize whatever the new opportunities that come our way, that we can make certain we're on the cutting edge so we can compete at the highest levels for our student athletes.
And that's what it's all about. And you've shown nothing other than maximum commitment on that front. Scott, thanks so much for spending a few minutes here with us. Sure do appreciate it. Another massive game on the Big Ten slate here going into week 9, of course, is the Penn State Nittany Lions, undefeated, number 3 in the country, heading to Camp Randall in Madison to battle the suddenly surging Wisconsin Badgers. 2-2 start to the season. Little lackluster. Obviously, you had the Tyler Van Dyke season-ending injury there at quarterback for the Badgers, but they have rebounded. Braden Locke is doing just enough, but the emergence of Tawee Walker has been incredible. 100 yards, 126 yards this past weekend in the win over Northwestern, and has really picked up the slack in a big way for a Badgers run game that badly needed it. Ches Malusi, obviously done for the season, stepping away to kind of focus on getting his body healthy. And now the Badgers have found a little bit of an identity here. But boy, will it be tested this week against the Penn State Nittany Lions, who come to Camp Randall off a bye week after an emotional win, a dramatic win in overtime on the road at the Coliseum over USC, where I felt like Drew Aller had his signature moment as the Penn State quarterback. That drive at the end of regulation where he went down and orchestrated the ability to go ahead and tie that game and send it to overtime was kind of that moment that I feel like Penn State fans have been waiting on. Sure, there were a couple of turnovers in that game that you want to continue to eliminate, but that's why Drew Aller is there at Penn State, for those moments, for those games, and to win in those type of environments. And so I think he finally, proved to folks that were still on the fence about whether, he was going to be the program changing quarterback that they thought he was when he came in. I think he starts to answer those questions. Now, look, with Wisconsin, you're getting a hot team, but I think the other thing to think about here is, yes, Wisconsin has found some success running the football lately, but boy, does this Penn State defense play some good ball. And Tom Allen, the first-year defensive coordinator, really seems to be finding, the right combinations, finding a rhythm here. Thought they played really well when they had to against USC down the stretch, harassing Miller Moss, hitting Miller Moss. And that's where I feel like, the Badgers could find themselves a little bit susceptible there with Braden Locke. When you pressure him, when you get him off his spot, that's where the inaccuracies start to show up a little bit. That's where the turnovers can start to show up. That kind of happened in the second half for Wisconsin against USC in what was their last loss. So I think for Penn State, it's going to be about continuing to get Abdul Carter and then Dennis Sutton and that whole crew just constantly wreaking havoc in the backfield. If they do that, I think they'll find a way, rush the passer on the way to the run, rush the quarterback on the way to stopping the run game. That kind of thing is going to be paramount here. And if you can stop the run, and if you can limit Tubby Walker and Cade Yacamelli and all that, I think that's where you start to find the success against Locke. You make Wisconsin one-dimensional through the air, and I think you're going to be talking about a Penn State Nittany Lion victory. And then, on offense for Penn State, it's about continuing to run the ball and find the explosive plays and find the ways in which that you can get your absolute stud of a tight end, Tyler Warren, going. Coming off the 17-catch, 240-yard game, record-setting game for a tight end. How does Wisconsin deal with Tyler Warren? I think will be obviously the biggest test for them, in addition to stopping, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. So run game and tight ends and trying to find a way to force some of those turnovers for Drew Aller, I think would be the formula, which is, of course, easier for me to say than it is to execute out on the field. But that's kind of the big game that we're looking at outside of Oregon, Illinois, and outside of Indiana, Washington on a fantastic Week 9 in the Big Ten. Thanks, everybody, for being with us here on another episode of Believe in Big Ten. Look forward to being back here with you on a Monday to recap all the action that we saw in Week 9. I'm Rhett Lewis. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll catch you next time.